Why living close to your children in old age could be the biggest mistake of your life. You've raised your children, watched them grow, and now, as you enter your senior years, they offer you the one thing that seems like the perfect solution: to live with them. Or perhaps you've already made the decision, and you've just moved into their home or a nearby one. It sounds ideal, right? Your children are eager to care for you, you're grateful for their love, and you get to spend more time with the people you've devoted your life to. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Is this truly the best decision for your happiness and well-being? Because, believe it or not, the very thing that seems like the perfect solution could very well turn into the biggest mistake of your life. Many people in their twilight years think that living close to their children will provide them with emotional support, security, and a comforting sense of belonging. On the surface, it looks like the ideal setup. The convenience of being near family, knowing that your children are just around the corner to help with whatever you need. But what most don't realize is that there are hidden costs, emotional, physical, and psychological, that come with this arrangement. In fact, I'm here to tell you that this setup, which so many view as the safe, practical choice, might very well undermine your independence, create tension in your relationships, and lead to emotional strain that you didn't see coming. It's easy to overlook these factors when you're caught up in the warmth of family bonds and the idea of being cared for in your old age. But I want to challenge you to look at this situation through a different lens and ask, is this really what you want for yourself in your final years? This video is not about bashing your children or suggesting that they don't love you. In fact, your children probably care for you deeply, and their intentions are more than likely to provide a safe, loving environment for you as you age. But love doesn't always translate into the perfect living arrangement, and proximity doesn't always equal care. The truth is, there are emotional, practical, and even psychological factors at play here that many of us fail to consider. The reality of living so close to your children, while seemingly safe, can often bring about feelings of dependency, resentment, guilt, and a loss of personal autonomy. Over time, what began as an act of love can turn into an emotional burden for both you and your children. So, let's take a step back and really think about what it means to live near your children in your later years. Is this the best choice for you, or are you setting yourself up for a future you won't enjoy? In this video, I'm going to explore why living close to your children in old age could be the biggest mistake of your life. I'll dive into the hidden pitfalls, the emotional costs, and the unintended consequences of this arrangement. It's time to consider whether there are better alternatives, whether living with or near your children is truly the path that will allow you to live the most fulfilling, independent, and happy life possible in your later years. Get ready to question what you thought was the best option and explore the real truths about what it means to age in the modern world. Let's jump in. Number 1, the illusion of security. We often hear that proximity equals care. The closer you are to your children, the more likely they will be there for you when you need them. This is the comforting illusion that many seniors fall into when considering living near or with their children in old age. It makes sense, doesn't it? If your children are nearby, they'll be able to check in on you, help with errands, and provide emotional support. But is this really the guarantee we hope for? On paper, it sounds like the perfect solution. Live close to your children, and you'll be well taken care of. After all, they are the ones you've spent your life raising, so naturally, they should want to return the favor. But in reality, this belief oversimplifies what it means to be cared for, especially as your children lead their own lives. The truth is, proximity doesn't automatically translate into better care. There are other, often more important, factors at play. Living close to your children doesn't mean they'll necessarily be available or able to meet your needs. It's easy to assume that the simple act of being nearby will fill in the gaps, but the reality is often more complicated. Children are busy with their own families, careers, and personal lives. While the intention to help might be there, the time, energy, or resources to provide consistent care often isn't. Once you start depending on your children for help, Whether it's with household chores, transportation, or even personal care, the relationship dynamic can shift in ways that aren't healthy, both for you and for them. When you live too close, it becomes easier to slip into a pattern of emotional and physical dependency. At first, it might seem like a small thing. Maybe your daughter picks you up for a doctor's appointment, or your son helps you with groceries. But slowly, over time, these small acts of kindness can build into a sense of obligation on both sides. For you, it might feel like you've lost your independence and that you're relying too heavily on them. For your children, it can create resentment, a sense of burnout, and a growing frustration with the demands of care. The dependency trap isn't just about the practicalities of care. It's about losing your sense of self. For you, it can feel like you're no longer the capable, independent person you once were. For your children, the responsibility of caring for a parent can often feel like a burden, no matter how much they love you. Another harsh reality is that no matter how well-intentioned your children may be, they're busy. Many adult children are juggling demanding careers, raising their own families, and dealing with the challenges of their own aging parents or personal struggles. The simple truth is that time and energy, two resources essential to providing care, are often in short supply. You may find that while your children are physically close, they're emotionally and mentally stretched thin. They may not be able to spend as much time with you as you hoped, leaving you feeling neglected or isolated. The quality of the care you receive can become inconsistent, and what was meant to be a close, supportive relationship can become strained, leading to frustration on both sides. Living near or with your children can also create unintended financial stress. It's easy to assume that being close to family will save you money. Perhaps you won't need to hire outside help or pay for transportation. But the financial reality is far more complicated. For your children, the financial strain can come in many forms. They may need to take time off work to care for you, which could affect their income or career progression. They might need to renovate their home to accommodate your needs, or perhaps you'll be sharing bills and living expenses, which can place a burden on their own financial situation. Over time, these costs can add up, leading to increased financial strain for both generations. This financial burden isn't just about the direct costs either. It can also create tension, guilt, and anxiety. Children may feel overwhelmed by their responsibility to provide for you, and you might feel like you're imposing or being a financial burden. Number 2, the emotional strain. Now that we've addressed the practical and logistical issues, let's take a deeper look at the emotional toll that living close to your children in old age can have. While you may think that proximity would bring emotional closeness, the reality is often the opposite. The dynamics of parent-child relationships can shift in ways that nobody anticipates. You may think that living near your children will bring you closer, but in many cases, it can actually do the opposite. When you live with or near your children, the boundary between your personal space and their personal space can blur. The result, you both start to take each other for granted. The emotional distance that once existed in healthy parent-child relationships can start to disappear. Suddenly, your children are not just your children. They're your caretakers, your daily companions, and even your critics. What once was a relationship built on respect and love can evolve into one marked by resentment, frustration, and even tension. They might feel as though they are being taken advantage of, and you might feel like you've lost your sense of autonomy. Living in close proximity, especially when you're dependent on them for daily support, can lead to constant emotional strain. What was once a bond of love and mutual respect can start to feel more like an obligation for both parties. This subtle shift can sour relationships over time, causing unnecessary stress and even leading to distance where there was once closeness. One of the hardest things to come to terms with as we grow older is the loss of independence. For many seniors, maintaining autonomy and control over their lives is vital to their sense of identity and dignity. But living too closely to your children can make it difficult to hold on to that sense of independence. When you live with or near your children, the lines between help and control can blur. Your children might begin to make decisions for you, even if they are well-meaning. What starts as a little assistance, like picking out your groceries, can quickly turn into them making decisions about how you live your life. The longer this goes on, the more you may feel like a passive observer in your own life rather than an active participant. This loss of autonomy can have profound psychological effects. It's not just about losing the ability to drive or cook for yourself. It's about feeling like you no longer have the right to make your own choices. This shift can erode your self-esteem and sense of control, making you feel increasingly small and irrelevant. The emotional weight of living with or near your children can often create a pressure cooker situation. Both you and your children are carrying a huge burden of guilt, expectations, and emotional tension. You might feel like you're imposing on them, even when they insist that you're not. At the same time, your children may feel guilty for not doing more, even when they're doing their best to juggle their own lives and responsibilities. This guilt can quickly turn into resentment on both sides. You may feel like a burden, and they might begin to feel overwhelmed by the constant demands of caregiving. It's a toxic cycle that can quickly spiral out of control, leading to burnout, frustration, and deep emotional pain. Perhaps the most profound impact of all is the psychological toll that living close to your children in old age can have. While you might think it's comforting to be near family, the emotional strain can contribute to significant mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, and a deep sense of helplessness. For many older adults, living near children can trigger feelings of being a burden, even when their children don't see it that way. Over time, this can lead to a profound sense of isolation, where the senior feels emotionally disconnected from everyone around them. The constant need for assistance, combined with the inability to contribute meaningfully, can lead to feelings of inadequacy and depression. Number 3, unintended power dynamics. As you transition into old age, a subtle and often unacknowledged shift occurs within the family dynamic. The roles you once held as the caregiver, the guide, the leader of the family begin to reverse. Your children, who were once dependent on you for their well-being, are now tasked with looking after you. For some parents, this role reversal is a smooth transition. They welcome the help and in some cases find joy in seeing their children grow into the role of caregiver. But for many, this shift is deeply uncomfortable, and it can create a complex web of emotions, from resentment to guilt to a loss of identity. The act of being cared for by your children can leave you feeling vulnerable, stripped of your dignity, and unsure of where you fit in the family hierarchy. Your children may not necessarily do anything wrong, but their actions, even when well-intentioned, can trigger feelings of helplessness or humiliation. Suddenly, instead of being the strong, independent figure you once were, you may find yourself relegated to the position of the dependent one. This reversal of roles can be particularly difficult if you have always taken pride in your independence or if you've been the family's decision maker for many years. The emotional toll of losing that sense of authority can be immense, leaving you to grapple with your own sense of self-worth and identity. One of the more complex aspects of living near your children in old age is the inevitable clash of authority. Over time, as your children become the primary decision makers in your life, there can be friction, especially when they offer advice or impose their will on you. Parents are often reluctant to let go of the reins, and they may resist the advice, direction, or decisions that their children want to impose. What starts as small disagreements, whether it's about diet, lifestyle choices, or medical care, can quickly escalate into major conflicts. Children may think they're acting out of care, but parents can feel undermined, dismissed, or even infantilized. This dynamic can quickly create tension. Your children may have the best intentions, but the way they enforce those intentions can come across as patronizing or disrespectful. On the other hand, the older parent, who has been used to making their own decisions for decades, may struggle with relinquishing control, especially if they feel that their independence is being threatened. This ongoing battle over authority can erode the parent-child relationship. What started as a cooperative, mutual arrangement can devolve into a power struggle, leaving both parties feeling disrespected and unsupported. Living close to your children as you age can also highlight the generational divide between you and them. In many cases, the values, priorities, and life experiences of the older generation clash with those of the younger. What you believe to be important, appropriate, or even necessary might be at odds with the way your children think or live. For example, the older generation may place a high value on tradition, family bonds, and certain lifestyles that were common during their youth. They may struggle to understand the more modern, individualistic attitudes of their children, who are often focused on career goals, personal freedom, and achieving work-life balance. These generational differences can cause friction in even the most well-meaning families. The gap in understanding can become particularly pronounced when it comes to caregiving. For instance, you might believe that physical presence and traditional forms of care, like a full-time caregiver or direct supervision, are the best ways to ensure your well-being. But your children, influenced by modern healthcare practices or their busy schedules, may prioritize independence or outsourced care. The constant back and forth of different viewpoints can leave everyone feeling misunderstood. Another challenge of living close to your children in old age is the potential infringement on your privacy and personal boundaries. There's a fine line between being a loving, involved parent and becoming an overbearing presence. While your children may want to check in on you or provide regular assistance, there's always a risk that this can become excessive. What starts as simple acts of care, like stopping by for visits, can slowly morph into a constant presence in your daily life. Over time, your children might begin to make assumptions about what you need without consulting you, crossing personal boundaries in ways that leave you feeling like a guest in your own life. The physical and emotional space that you once enjoyed could become crowded, and the independence you've cherished might be compromised. You may find yourself adjusting to new rules, restrictions, and expectations, all of which can blur the lines of respect and autonomy. As the lines between care and control become more blurred, both you and your children may struggle to find a healthy balance between being involved in each other's lives and respecting personal space. And when those boundaries aren't respected, feelings of suffocation, frustration, and resentment can begin to build. Number 4, the risk of stagnation. When you're living close to your children, especially in the context of old age, one of the more subtle risks you face is the potential for mental and social stagnation. While it may feel comforting to have your children nearby, it can also create a scenario where your social interactions become limited. Instead of engaging with a variety of people and seeking activities that stimulate your mind and body, you might find yourself relying on family as your sole social circle. This limited interaction can prevent you from seeking out new hobbies, meeting new people, or experiencing the kinds of challenges that keep your mind active and engaged. Without stimulation outside of your immediate family, your world may shrink, and this can lead to feelings of isolation, boredom, and a lack of purpose. A key aspect of aging well is maintaining a sense of personal growth and development. As we age, it's essential to keep evolving mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But when you rely too heavily on your children for emotional support, you may unintentionally stunt your own personal growth. If you constantly turn to your children for validation, support, or solutions to your problems, you might stop looking for ways to grow on your own. Without the challenge of navigating the world outside your children's influence, you could lose your sense of self-worth and independence. Relying too much on them can make you feel like you're no longer capable of making your own decisions, leading to a deep sense of stagnation. True growth comes from challenging yourself, exploring new ideas, and seeking new experiences. When you're only exposed to the same people and ideas day in and day out, your personal growth can grind to a halt. Living too close to your children also means you're constantly surrounded by their ideas, habits, and perspectives. This can inadvertently create an echo chamber effect, where you're exposed to the same viewpoints without the benefit of diverse outside perspectives. Instead of challenging yourself with new ideas or engaging in debates that broaden your mind, you might find yourself stuck in a feedback loop of the same opinions and perspectives. This can limit your intellectual and emotional growth, causing you to become more resistant to change or new ways of thinking. Your children's influence, while well-meaning, might unintentionally stifle your ability to think independently, forcing you to adopt their worldview and preferences, whether you agree with them or not. Being constantly immersed in your children's lives, without room for external influence, can also lead to emotional complacency. You may feel comforted by the familiar, but you lose the ability to stretch beyond your comfort zone, and with it, the opportunities for personal growth that are essential for a fulfilling old age. Living too close to family, while it might seem like a good idea in terms of safety and support, can inadvertently lead to social isolation. When you're constantly surrounded by your children and immediate family, it can become easier to withdraw from your wider social circle. If all your energy is focused on family relationships and caregiving responsibilities, you might stop seeking out friendships, community activities, or interactions with peers outside your immediate family. Social isolation is a huge risk as you age. Humans are social creatures, and maintaining a rich network of social connections is vital for mental and emotional well-being. Without this, loneliness can quickly set in, leading to depression, anxiety, and a diminished quality of life. It's easy to assume that being around family will offer all the social stimulation and support you need. But family interactions can often become repetitive, limiting, or even emotionally draining, especially when there's underlying tension or unresolved conflict. When your world becomes more insular, focused almost exclusively on family, it can rob you of the opportunity to explore new friendships, engage with other generations, and remain an active participant in the larger community. This isolation can be a major contributor to depression and the decline of mental health in older adults. When caregiving responsibilities are shared between siblings or other family members, it can be hard to avoid conflict. Who does the heavy lifting? Who decides on medical care? These decisions can create rifts within families, leading to hurt feelings, anger, and resentment. When caregiving is primarily the responsibility of one child, it can breed feelings of unfairness or even abandonment from the other siblings. Even well-meaning siblings can struggle with disagreements over decisions, from financial choices to what kind of care a parent should receive. If one child feels overwhelmed, it's easy for them to project their frustrations onto the parent, leading to guilt tripping or emotional manipulation. On the flip side, the parent may become frustrated with the lack of involvement from other children, creating further divisions. These ongoing conflicts, combined with the stress of caregiving, can make family dynamics incredibly volatile. Number 5, the illusion of protection. One of the most insidious risks of living close to your children in old age is the potential for overprotection. Many children, out of love and concern, may inadvertently take away their parents' sense of autonomy. What might start as small acts of kindness, driving you to appointments, doing your shopping, cooking meals for you, can quickly escalate into a form of micromanagement. The more they step in, the less you may feel able to do for yourself. And that's where the danger lies. In the name of protection, children might hinder their parents' ability to remain independent, which can undermine your sense of self-worth and lead to a loss of autonomy. Overprotection can create a dependency loop, where you begin to rely on their help even for things you would have otherwise been able to manage on your own. The more they try to help, the less you feel empowered to make your own decisions. The less you make your own decisions, the more you may lose your confidence in your ability to live independently. While the intentions behind these actions are well-meaning, the emotional and psychological consequences of being treated like a child when you are an adult can be profound. You might feel infantilized, frustrated, and even resentful of the care that's meant to be a safeguard. A person's sense of dignity and self-respect is closely tied to their ability to make choices and take action in their own life. When this is stripped away, it can lead to feelings of worthlessness and depression. When caregiving responsibilities fall disproportionately on one child, the entire family dynamic can suffer. Caregiving can quickly become overwhelming, physically exhausting, and emotionally draining. The burden of managing a parent's health, household, finances, and emotional needs can stretch a caregiver to their limits. Unfortunately, when there's an assumption that the proximity of family guarantees support, this exhaustion can sneak up on both generations. Being a full-time caregiver is an enormous responsibility, and it's not always one that can be carried by a single individual. If one child takes on the lion's share of caregiving duties, it often leads to feelings of resentment, burnout, and in extreme cases, complete emotional breakdowns. This creates tension not only between the caregiver and the aging parent, but also among siblings and other family members who may feel guilt, anger, or frustration at the situation. On the other side, the parent can begin to feel like a burden, not only to the child providing care, but also to the others in the family who may feel guilty for not stepping up. The imbalance of caregiving can lead to serious emotional and familial fallout, making the situation far more complex than it initially appeared. The strain on both parties can lead to broken relationships, resentment, and lasting emotional scars that may outlive the caregiving period itself. Number 6, the negative health effects. Living too closely with family, especially as an older adult, can have unintended physical health consequences. One of the most significant impacts of close family dynamics is the emotional strain that can develop. When you live near your children, you may experience ongoing stress, whether it's the emotional burden of dependency, the frustration of not being able to live independently, or the underlying tension in family relationships. This stress doesn't just affect your mental health, it has real, tangible effects on your body. Chronic stress has been linked to a wide variety of physical health problems, from heart disease to high blood pressure, digestive issues, and weakened immune systems. Stress can also contribute to chronic pain conditions, such as arthritis or back problems, that become more difficult to manage as you age. Beyond the immediate physical effects, stress can contribute to increased vulnerability to illnesses, as your immune system becomes compromised by the constant emotional turmoil. The strain of constantly dealing with difficult family dynamics, caregiving responsibilities, or loss of independence can have a direct long-term impact on your physical well-being. The emotional and psychological toll of living too close to your children can also significantly impact your mental health. The dependency, the loss of autonomy, and the underlying tension within the family can gradually chip away at your sense of self-worth. This emotional weight can lead to feelings of hopelessness, anxiety, and in many cases, depression. When your mental health begins to decline, it can create a vicious cycle. Your emotional distress may make it harder for you to interact with your children or express your needs. This, in turn, can exacerbate feelings of isolation, guilt, or resentment. Moreover, living in an environment where you feel like a constant burden can lead to feelings of shame, which further worsens mental health conditions. Another concern that arises when living too closely with children is the potential for unnecessary medical intervention. With well-meaning intentions, your children might begin to overstep when it comes to managing your health care. This could mean pushing for treatments or medications that you don't need or want, or even making health-related decisions without consulting you. Overzealous caregiving, especially in the medical domain, can undermine your sense of agency and autonomy over your own body. While it's true that family members might have a better idea of your health status than anyone else, their involvement can sometimes lead to medical overreach, decisions being made on your behalf without considering your own wishes. This lack of control over your health care can erode your trust in your caregivers and increase feelings of helplessness. While much of the focus tends to be on the aging parent's health, it's important not to overlook the toll caregiving takes on the adult children. The demands of caregiving can be physically exhausting, emotionally draining, and financially taxing. Over time, caregiving can negatively affect the health of children, leading to stress-related illnesses, burnout, and even depression. The pressure to be constantly available for a parent, combined with the emotional strain of navigating the challenges of caregiving, can lead to mental exhaustion for adult children. They may experience feelings of inadequacy, guilt, or resentment, which further worsen their mental and physical well-being. This creates a situation where both the parent and child are simultaneously suffering, physically and emotionally. The idea that proximity to family automatically creates a supportive environment can quickly dissolve when the strain of caregiving becomes overwhelming for everyone involved. Number 7, finding fulfillment elsewhere. As we age, one of the most important things we can do is build and maintain a strong support system. While family is undoubtedly a crucial part of that network, relying exclusively on your children for emotional and social fulfillment can lead to an unhealthy sense of isolation. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that being close to your children is enough to feel loved and supported, but that can neglect the need for diverse relationships and social connections. In old age, having a broad range of relationships is essential for emotional health. Friendships and community ties provide the opportunity to connect with people who share your interests, experiences, and passions, independent of family obligations. Participating in community groups, volunteer organizations, or even regular social activities with peers can make you feel part of something larger than your immediate family. These interactions can offer emotional stimulation, support, and companionship that are not tied to the demands and complexities of family caregiving. Not only does this prevent the feeling of becoming a burden on your children, but it also gives you the opportunity to stay engaged with the world outside of your home, maintaining an active, fulfilling lifestyle. This sense of independence and connection outside your immediate family can help combat feelings of loneliness and depression, which are all too common in old age. As we age, our needs change. There may come a time when living independently in your own home becomes more difficult, but that doesn't mean you need to rely on your children for care. Independent living communities, assisted living facilities, and even retirement villages provide an excellent middle ground between full independence and living with family. These environments offer support when you need it, such as housekeeping, healthcare services, and social activities, but still allow you to maintain your autonomy. Many of these communities are designed to encourage social engagement and provide ample opportunities for recreation, hobbies, and lifelong learning. They also offer a sense of belonging among peers in similar life stages, which can be deeply fulfilling. By choosing to live in a space that promotes your independence, you allow yourself the freedom to live life on your terms without putting the strain of caregiving on your children. Independent living doesn't mean isolation. It means creating a life that's centered on your needs, where you can find the balance between support and self-sufficiency, all while remaining connected to a broader community. One of the most important ways to maintain mental and emotional health as you age is to stay connected to your own interests. Whether it's painting, gardening, writing, or playing an instrument, maintaining your passions is key to preventing stagnation. When you live with or near your children, it's easy to neglect your personal interests in favor of spending time with family or relying on them for entertainment or companionship. This can lead to a sense of loss of self, where your identity becomes tied to your role as a parent or grandparent, rather than your individual passions. Engaging in hobbies that you love can help you stay mentally sharp, emotionally balanced, and physically active. It provides a sense of fulfillment that can't be derived from simply relying on your children's company. It can also give you a sense of purpose and pride as you continue to develop and grow in your areas of interest, no matter your age. Having a sense of purpose is one of the most vital components of a healthy and fulfilling life, especially in your later years. Living close to or with your children can, unintentionally, detract from your sense of purpose. When your life becomes centered around your children and their needs, it can overshadow your own aspirations and goals. Pursuing your own goals, whether they are personal, creative, or social, allows you to continue developing as a person. It prevents you from slipping into the role of just a caregiver, just a parent, or just a grandparent. It helps you see yourself as an individual with your own unique set of interests and contributions to the world. Without this sense of purpose, your life can feel empty or unfulfilled. Maintaining some level of independence, not just physically but emotionally and mentally, is essential to living a life that feels meaningful. Number 8, financial independence and control. Living with or near your children may seem like a more affordable option in your later years, but it often carries hidden financial costs, both for you and for them. As a senior, you may not realize how much of a financial burden you are placing on your children, especially if you rely on them for living expenses, healthcare, or transportation. For many adult children, the financial responsibilities of caring for an aging parent can create long-term strain. Additional housing costs, medical expenses, and the possibility of a reduced earning capacity due to the time spent caregiving can significantly affect their financial future. Similarly, while you may think that living near your children saves you money in the short term, the costs of caregiving, whether direct or indirect, can diminish your savings and assets over time. Financial dependence on your children often leads to a tension between wealth transfer and family stability. You might feel that you should not burden your children financially, yet their willingness to help can blur these boundaries. Over time, this dependency can lead to unspoken tensions regarding money, especially if financial contributions feel uneven or come at the expense of your children's own savings or financial stability. Furthermore, discussions around inheritance, savings, and living expenses can stir up feelings of guilt, resentment, or even competition between siblings. These financial tensions, though often not directly expressed, can simmer under the surface and create long-lasting rifts in family relationships. One of the best ways to preserve both your financial independence and family harmony is to make thoughtful plans for your own financial future. Establishing a solid retirement plan, investing in long-term care insurance, and preparing for potential health costs can ensure that you're not financially reliant on your children. By taking charge of your finances, you give yourself the opportunity to make decisions that are best for your well-being without placing an undue financial burden on your children. Financial planning also grants you peace of mind, knowing that you've made provisions for your future and are not a source of stress or concern for your family. It allows you to maintain your dignity and self-sufficiency, crucial elements in your ongoing sense of autonomy. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself as you age is the ability to manage your own finances. Being able to make your own financial decisions, live within your means, and plan for your own care gives you a sense of control and independence. It also ensures that you can enjoy your later years with the peace of mind that comes from knowing you're not reliant on anyone else for your financial security. For many people, there is a deep sense of pride in being self-sufficient. It's not about being stubborn or refusing help. It's about maintaining your dignity and your ability to manage your own life as you see fit. Taking control of your finances and your future without depending on your children is a way to honor that independence and preserve your self-respect as you age. Number 9, alternative perspectives and cultural norms. Around the world, the approach to aging and the expectation of living with or near children varies significantly. In many Western cultures, independence is deeply ingrained in the values of aging. The idea that older adults should live separately from their children, in their own homes or communities, is considered a symbol of dignity and personal freedom. However, this concept of independence often leads to isolation and a lack of familial support when help is needed. In contrast, Eastern cultures, as well as many in Latin America and Africa, tend to view multi-generational living as the norm. It's not unusual for aging parents to live with their children as part of a deeply rooted familial duty or cultural practice. There are both pros and cons to these different approaches. In collectivist societies where family bonds are paramount, older adults are often surrounded by family members who provide constant care, companionship, and financial support. This fosters a deep sense of security and belonging. However, it can also lead to overdependence, conflict, and a loss of autonomy, especially when expectations become burdensome for both generations. In more individualistic societies, aging parents may experience more loneliness and isolation, but they also have the opportunity to maintain their independence longer. In these cases, the lack of close familial ties can create emotional voids that might lead to depression or a sense of abandonment. Neither system is perfect, but each reflects cultural norms that shape how we view our relationships with aging parents and children. For many, living with or near children is simply seen as the expected way of aging. This deeply ingrained cultural norm can create a sense of obligation, not only for parents, but also for children who may feel pressured to provide care. But what happens when you challenge this expectation? What if you could create your own path, one that allows you to age with dignity and independence, without the emotional strain or power imbalances that sometimes arise from living too close to family? Breaking the norm requires challenging the assumption that living with children is the only viable option. The truth is, your later years don't have to revolve around proximity to your children. Instead, focus on fostering relationships that nurture your well-being, whether with friends, community members, or through independent living options that give you the freedom to make your own choices. The traditional role of aging parents as the central figures in family life is shifting. Modern life has created new challenges and new opportunities for both parents and children. In today's fast-paced world, families are geographically dispersed, careers are more demanding, and life expectancy is longer. The expectations of older generations have changed, and the traditional notion that aging parents should live with their children may no longer fit into the dynamics of modern society. Aging today doesn't have to mean giving up your independence or becoming a burden to your children. The role of aging parents is evolving, and so should the idea of how we support each other in later life. It's about balance, maintaining connection with your children while also pursuing a fulfilling and independent life. Number 10, how to prepare for a better future. One of the most important steps in preparing for your later years is to embrace change. As society shifts, so too do the expectations of how we live in old age. It's essential to reframe the way you think about aging. Instead of clinging to the idea that living near or with your children is the only safe option, consider what truly matters to you: autonomy, fulfillment, and emotional well-being. Ask yourself, what does independence look like to you? And how can you plan to achieve it, even when you age? Challenging the norm requires mental flexibility and an openness to new possibilities. The idea that you'll be taken care of by your children may sound comforting, but it's important to recognize that there are other solutions that allow for more autonomy and less emotional strain. Whether through planning for independent living, maintaining friendships outside of family, or seeking out community resources, there are many ways to ensure you have a fulfilling, self-sufficient life as you age. The most effective way to prepare for your future is by making a plan for independence now. Begin by assessing your current needs and imagining your ideal future. Do you want to remain in your home for as long as possible? Would you be open to living in an independent living community or an assisted living facility? Now is the time to explore options, weigh the pros and cons, and make sure that your plan aligns with your values and goals. If maintaining independence is a priority, then start thinking about practical steps you can take. These may include investing in home modifications, building financial security for future care, and developing a network of support beyond family. Consider setting aside funds for potential healthcare costs and looking into services like home health aides or transportation options that will allow you to continue to live on your terms. The earlier you start planning, the more control you'll have over your choices when the time comes. One of the most important things you can do for your future is to build a support system outside your immediate family. While family support is important, relying too heavily on children can create emotional strain for both you and them. Instead, look to friends, neighbors, and community organizations to provide additional sources of care, companionship, and social engagement. Having a strong network will help you stay emotionally healthy and socially connected, while also allowing your children to live their own lives without the added pressure of being your sole caregiver. It's about creating a life where you are not just a parent, but a vibrant, independent individual with rich and meaningful relationships that extend beyond your immediate family. Preparing emotionally for the fact that living near your children might not always provide the fulfillment and care you expect is essential. It's normal to feel conflicted about this decision, After all, family is family. However, being realistic about the potential emotional challenges can help you make better choices for your future. Consider speaking with a therapist or counselor to help you process any feelings of guilt, fear, or uncertainty about independence. Talk to friends, family members, or support groups who can provide perspective and help you navigate the complexities of aging. Remember, the goal is not to reject your family or isolate yourself, but to find a path that balances family connection with independence. Final thoughts. While it may seem comforting to live near your children in old age, it's important to recognize that the reality of such a living arrangement often comes with hidden dangers. Dependency, emotional strain, loss of autonomy, and increased family tension can quietly undermine your well-being, even if the intentions behind it are loving and kind. Proximity to your children does not guarantee the care, fulfillment, or emotional satisfaction you may expect. Instead of focusing solely on family connections, it's time to think critically about what will bring you true independence and happiness in your later years. You have the power to shape your future, and it's time to take control of your own aging process. Empower yourself to make decisions that align with your values and prioritize your autonomy. Seek out the resources, support networks, and independent living options that will allow you to live with dignity, independence, and emotional fulfillment. You do not have to rely on the assumption that living close to your children is the only path to security. I encourage you to take some time today to reflect on your own plans for aging. What do you truly want for your future? Is it proximity to your children, or is it the freedom to live life on your own terms? Start thinking beyond the traditional models of aging and explore alternatives that will allow you to continue to thrive, stay independent, and build a life that brings you peace and fulfillment. The choices you make today can create the life you deserve tomorrow. Don't wait. Start planning now.